So the Carolina Panthers lost a very disappointing game to the New Orleans Saints, and I gotta say, the most disappointing thing about that game altogether was doing this in front of the home crowd. That was the most disappointing thing. But if you ask me, am I surprised that that this happened? I tell you no. I tell you that I understand this team still isn't anywhere close to being a consistent winner. They've shown signs of life and they've shown improvement, but being able to withstand a big victory against Green Bay last Sunday, have a victory Monday, and keep the same level of focus is something that you're asking a young team to do that hasn't won anything. Like, not only is this team young, but it also hasn't won anything. And at least hasn't won anything together. The veterans that you have, they've won in other places, but they've never won here. The guys that have been tenured here have never won here. So it's not really a situation where I trust that they can handle this level of success. And now that goes to the leadership question. Because throughout the entirety of the post-game pressers, all the post-game questioning, multiple guys have stated there was a lack of focus, a lack of intensity that went into practice this entire week. A lack of energy. Nick Scordon stated that there was a lack of energy even in the locker room prior to the game. That is oh man, I gotta look at leadership, whether the captains on the team holding guys accountable, holding guys to a standard, the coaching staff holding guys accountable, holding guys to a standard. Those are the things that I have to look to and say, like, man, like, why are multiple players saying this? You got guys saying that there was a lack of preparation. That came from Ike Ekwonu, your starting left tackle. Your starting left tackle telling me there was a lack of preparation, a lack of execution. Dude, these are things that are just unacceptable. That's what's unacceptable about the loss. Not the loss itself. I've not forgotten who we are as a team and who everybody thinks we are as a team as well. We are the Carolina Panthers. We are a team that goes into, goes into road games as double-digit underdogs still. Like, no matter whether we won them or not, people still don't believe we're a threat. I see teams, fan bases crash out if they lose to us. That's who we are. Nobody feels as if the Carolina Panthers are a team you should lose to. And so I take that same approach to looking at everybody else. I don't feel like we should lose to some of these teams, but I also know, brother, any given Sunday, it can happen. Absolutely. But moving on from that, I mean, the biggest thing here, I know people are really up in arms about these Bryce Young performances. And the numbers this year just have not looked up to par, have not looked like a guy that is, the numbers haven't looked like a guy you can say is your franchise quarterback. And if I look at the numbers, I would say I agree. I would absolutely say I agree. But for those, I would say, look, this can't be the same Bryce Young that we as a fan base claim that if he were available for the Buffalo Bills game, we could have won. You can't go from that and then winning a game on the road in Lambeau to then saying that now after this performance, he can no longer be the quarterback of the Carolina Panthers. I don't know if that's the case. I think, like every other player in the league, bad games can happen. Bryce Young, for what it's worth, had been 4-1 in his previous 5 starts. I don't think that's a mistake. I don't think it's a mistake that you play a more successful brand of football when Bryce Young is on the field. I think what's happened is that people are having a hard time adjusting to the fact that Dave Canales adjusted his philosophy with this team. Once Rico Dowdle was inserted into the lineup and you saw the ground game really ascend to being a top 5 rushing attack within the game of football, I think he changed up his ideology of how he wants to attack with his offense. And there have been less shots. There have been less pass attempts. There have been less opportunities for our receivers to make plays. I think it all coincides with the fact that we see the development with this team is that we have a defense that can bend but don't break. They get stops. They create turnovers. They do things that help us out and give us opportunities. We have an offensive line whose strength, with K. Mays inserted into the lineup at the center position, is running the football, getting downhill. And we have a running back that can hit it on the nose every time. Why deviate away from that? What Dave is going to have to figure out is how do we marry the two? And I think he shifted his mindset this year on what the strength of the team is going to be, and he's adjusted. And I can't be mad at the coach for adjusting to what he sees. And I can't be mad because I wanted this. I wanted a physical identity for my football team, a team that could run the football. I said it last week and I'll say it again. This style of football is what helps you out in the later months in the season. When you get to December, when you get to January, when you can run the football like that, teams have a hard time wanting to deal with that each and every snap. So, again, kudos to the New Orleans Saints, but also I think one has to realize that that's a division matchup. And the New Orleans Saints have not been bad. Their record is bad. That's true. We can't dispute that. They can't be refuted by anything. They themselves have not been bad. They've been competitive. They competed against teams that we got blew out by. They competed against the Buffalo Bills and took them and had that game contested, at the in the waning minutes. So they're not a bad team. They've had things not go their way. They're not I think from a talent perspective, I think one would say they're not the most talented team, but they are a competitive group. So again, a game like this within the division is bound to happen. Is it disappointing still? Absolutely. Hell yeah, it's absolutely disappointing. It's disappointing that my $100 million corner gives up 2 touchdowns. That's disappointing. Those two plays by J.C. Horn, and I'm not putting it all on him because you still had opportunity after the first one and even the second. Like, your offense didn't give you anything anyway. But there has to be, like, that's the leader in the room. Like, that's one of the leaders. Like, having what everybody said about the energy and the week of practice going into this game, and then having that performance by one of your better players, probably second best player to Derrick Brown, is very telling. It all kind of coincides to me. But I mean, it is what it is. But I will say, Dave Canales and Bryce Young have to figure out this passing attack for sure. They do have to figure it out because there is no way we can continue to play if we can't win games with the passing game at all. You know what I'm saying? Like, there has to be signs of life. That, in that game, there were no signs of life. Obviously, Tetairoa McMillan does what he does each and every week. I can guarantee him for about 5 catches to about 50 to 60 yards a game. That's guaranteed. Where's the next guy? Where is the next guy? Jalen Coker's back into the lineup. He got a good chunk of snaps yesterday. He had the second most snaps for any receiver, only behind Tetairoa McMillan. Xavier Legette, at least from what ESPN said, they didn't even count the target in the back of the end zone to Legette. I don't know if they counted it as a throwaway or what, or they said they deemed the ball uncatchable. But he didn't even register a single target outside of that play. Then you had Jimmy Horn fumble a jet sweep. So just from a functionality standpoint, your offense it just wasn't there. It almost looked like Andy Dalton's out there playing quarterback. And that's where those things can't happen. Because what we pride ourselves on with Bryce Young is that he takes care of the football. He's been better about taking care of the football. He's able to create plays. You get in and out of your offense better with Bryce Young on the field than you do with Andy Dalton. And I think that's still true. I think that was but I think that game was a bad game. I think decision making was bad. It was bad from the jump. I won't even call this a trap game because New Orleans came out and beat you. Even if you go back to the first drive of that game, right? DeMario Davis gets an interception that I don't quite understand why Bryce threw that. It was a seam route to Ja'Tavion Sanders. It looked like a single high look from the defense. The safety obviously shading to the strong side of the field. You had trips to the left. Tetairoa McMillan on the backside singled up. And on that play, obviously Davis is running with the seam, running with Ja'Tavion Sanders underneath. The safety doesn't move. The safety does not move. He is playing right over the top and seemingly bracketing Ja'Tavion Sanders up the seam, and Bryce still throws it. There is no way for you to layer that ball. There's no way you're not throwing that ball over the top of Davis's head, and Davis is looking right at you once he throws it. You got bailed out there by roughing the passer penalty, and then you were able to go on and score. You had no real semblance of offense. It didn't happen. He had a couple runs here and there from Rico Dowdle. He had some success, but your passing attack had no signs of life. So I'm with everyone in saying that Bryce Young must play better if we want to have a chance to win games. Absolutely. I'm not with everyone in saying that Bryce Young isn't good enough to help to be our quarterback moving forward. That I don't agree with. I simply cannot agree with that one. I think for a team that's under a second-year head coach, finally found a semblance of an identity. I think for a coach that had the main ridicule of Dave Canales was that he couldn't establish ground games, no matter especially in his previous stop being Tampa Bay, he couldn't establish the run. I thought he's leaned more into that, and now he has to figure out, fam, how do I elevate my passing attack? Now, I'm not saying that one can't say that he doesn't feel hampered by Bryce. I'm not saying you can't feel that way. I'm not saying that isn't true. I'm just saying that this team figured out its identity and they leaned into it. Overall, the defense, though, I mean, look, I thought Avero's unit has played outstanding. They've been great. I don't think there's much for me to really say other than, Nick Scorton. If I had any critique, Nick Scorton, the rookie, young guy, 21 years old, I need you to finish on some of these sacks because you have about 7 sacks on the year that you should have. I think he's at about 3.5 right now. You should have 7 to 8. You hit, what I'm saying, finishing off some of those plays. But man, that defense gets beat sometimes, gets stops in the red zone, which is critical. They give you plenty of opportunities in that game. I mean, they had a fourth down stop in the second half, but you still couldn't turn into anything. So there isn't much for me to say about that unit other than JC don't give up 2 touchdowns like in the fashion that you did as well. But for Carolina moving forward, the season isn't over. You play Atlanta this upcoming week on the road. Is it a daunting task? Yeah, absolutely. It's a divisional game on the road. That's an environment where they're going to be loud. They're going to be proud. They're going to bring it, even though they also lost. Shout out to the Colts. But I don't know if I'm not done with this team yet. But I would say, brother, bring y'all asses prepared this week. You feel me? Like, I don't ever want to hear a lack of preparation from any of y'all again. Like, wow, no. Y'all wasted my coin. Y'all wasted my coin. I don't know I can't remember whether I said this earlier in the video, but wasting my coin is something I don't take lightly. So I won't be going back to a game. That's my fault, y'all. That's just me. But you've been listening to Joint Dropper Sports. I'm your host, Sean T. Stewart. And before I get up out of here, I don't know whether we'll be releasing a full-fledged episode this week. I wanted to get this out for my Panther Nation brethren. But stay tuned, y'all. This is Joint Dropper Sports. I'm Sean T. Stewart, and I'm out.